I'm going to call the Board of Finance into order at 5:08 p.m.
She just can't, is having trouble.
Okay. First item on the agenda is the agenda. And I welcome a motion to adopt the agenda as posted on board docs currently.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Wiki and Hightower. Any discussion at the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed, motion carries unanimously, and we have an agenda. That brings us to the public forum. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak to the Board of Finance? Do you see hand raised? JP Casino? Go ahead. You should be able to talk. JP.
Can you guys hear me?
We can now, yes. Go
Okay,
ahead.
cool. Sorry about that. So I'm JP Casino. I own North Star Sports with my family at 100 Main Street in Burlington. I, under the the guidance of Chapin Spencer, thought it would be best to speak today here instead of the city council, just to make it a little bit easier to talk. And that was about the Great Streets Main Street redo for parking, and how I wanted to recommend waiting on a decision to change the layout of the streets for the parking, primarily because I don't think we have not received any calls, stop-bys, visits, like from anyone saying, hey, this is what's happening. How's it going to affect your business? What would you like to see? Things to that nature. And we, unfortunately, we sell bikes, and it's not something that's simple to, put in a bag, walk 5 blocks and drop off. We have our people that come out, need us for help to unload a bike, load it back up. Bikes can be, 60 pounds if it's an e-bike. And they have special racks on them, which would mainly stick out more, which require more space. So I'm a little concerned how quickly and without much notice from anybody, or at least to any of the businesses, that the city has decided to make a permanent change to the layout for the streets for parking. And I would love to get first them to meet with us and other businesses to say, hey, this is what's going on, and to see what, how it's going to affect us. That is, honestly, that's my main concern right now, is the parking, and just honestly the lack of clarification from anybody about any meetings or changes that's been going on. I only found out about this just randomly through a message group, and that's all I had found out about it. So I kind of just want a little bit more help from the city to navigate this, and just to let them know, like, hey, parking for my customers is a big thing because it is a heavy item, and we've been around for 30 years. So I'm just going to make it quick for you folks, but I would say if you could wait, talk to us, give us some explanations where the parking is going to get lost. If it is going to get lost, that would be a big thing for us, so that we can feel better about continuing to grow our community of bikers and just our business as well.
Very good, JP. Thank you. We also received an email from you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it.
Great. Also, we have in attendance Zandy Miller. Zandy, if you want to come up to the board. Somebody is beeping madly out there. I don't know if it's but it's distracting a little bit. You can touch silence there later. What's that?
Might be Councilor Bergman's back.
I'm going to say bye. Zandy, going into his backpack. We'll see what happens. All right, go ahead, Zandy.
Welcome. Well, thank you for that. I I also have a comment on the Main Street project, which I think is a very exciting opportunity, obviously, for the city. And I understand the urgency of the funding and some of the benefits that are, I think, transformative potentially for the city. Absolutely. And I'm particularly excited about the opportunity to make some significant headway on the stormwater control as we're having more intense, shorter rainfalls that make it very hard to manage the impact on our sewer treatment plant and our wastewater. So a lot of positives. To get to the issue, one thing that's going to happen today is that it's likely that there's an amendment to this proposal that's going to include some shared use path all the way down, I believe, 6 blocks instead of 5, and at the city council meeting. And the impact, and I think that's a good idea. I think it was a little bit of an inconsistency. Why are we doing? And there was private property and there was business, and they didn't want to take that land. So I think the intention was good, but I think they're going to eliminate some further parking. And but without that change, the 6 blocks, we're going to lose 67 spots. And I think that what I'm interested in, and the reason I'm here at finance, is because you want business to succeed. We're part of the picture, and after all the federal money is come and gone, which we're all benefiting from and very happy about, but some point the rest of us are going to have to perform and continue to generate sales tax and pay your taxes and make this place a terrific place to visit and be. So my request and recommendation is that we ask the city, well, my goal first is, I think the city and the private sector should work together to come up with some parking options that accommodate some people, and it might be 2 to 4 blocks from where people are used to parking. They're not going to park right outside my front door necessarily. They're not going to do that, and it's not going to be available. But are we going to communicate through excellent signage, digital communication, and planned strategies so that people feel welcome when they come? They can find something. And if I see a really good direction and I take a right and I find a place, it looks like this town wants me to be here. And if it's clean, well lit, and safe, I'm good. And I'm not sure we have the clear wayfinding or the other characteristics of our parking on a very consistent basis. So there is in the proposal some money for some parking study, I believe is going to be in there. And I think that's a good start. I'm not interested in the study on a shelf. And I'd like to see a commitment that the private and public sector come up with some options that may not be what we're used to, which is right outside my door, but is solid accommodations from the new parent that brought somebody to UVM or St. Mike's or Champlain this year. The people that are just visiting, the people that are used to shopping downtown, used to getting services, getting the nails done, getting the hair done. This is not going to be easy for people. 67 spots in 6 blocks, that's a real number. And I'm not sure where to go. So that's my request, and I encourage, and I know we did this on North Winooski Avenue, did we not? We made some moves with the bike path, and then we discovered that the workers at the health center were using a lot of the spaces, and then we're like, oh my goodness, we have no spots. Let's be proactive. And let's not be afraid to get to show some commitment, spend a little money, and do some planning and get the public working, the private sector working with the city to get this up.
Great, thank you very much, Sandy and GP. This isn't really set up as like a back and forth. There will be a presentation from Public Works at the full meeting tonight, and I think they will be speaking to the process issues and ideas such as the ones that have been raised.
And just for those of us who don't know, Andy, can you say who you are?
Zandy Wheeler, and I'm one of the owners of the ski rack.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hightower. I should have. We don't have public forum comment here at Board of Finance. Didn't have my protocols down. All right, so I'm gonna, if there's no one else online or in person, we're gonna close the public forum and we'll move to the consent agenda, which is welcome motion to adopt the consent agenda and take the actions indicated.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Hightower, seconded by Councilor McKee. Discussion. Seeing none, we will go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
President Paul, are there any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Are you able to hear me now?
We are able to hear you, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Hearing us clearly?
Yep, yep.
Great. Okay. Thank you, President Paul, for joining us despite the travel complications. The next item, we have two budget items. 4.02 is the tax rate discussion. People, Councilor, if you haven't seen it yet, you did get a communication from us earlier today about a new meeting next week for 4.01 police budget. That's proposed for next Tuesday. Let us know if that's the night you'll be able to join us. 4.02 is the tax rate discussion, and the CEO, Kathleen Schatz's going to.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. In the interest of time, I will keep it brief. If you are interested, there is a quick PowerPoint online. But this is one of the more important and exciting, even though it's taxes, part of my job. We talk about the tax rate, which shows up at the bottom here. This is the rate people will be familiar with. Our municipal rate last year was just over 67 cents. But as you can see here, it's really made up of these 14 individual rates. And so we'll just go through them very quickly and then see if you have questions. An important component of this worksheet is the value of our grand list. That is up here. You can see the value last year was just over 53 million. Now it's 56. And that is because we were conservative last year, thinking that we would have to give away more in, why can't I think of the word? When we could, appeals, thank you, I'm like, not amendments, appeals, yes, thank you, Mayor. So that has come up about $3 million and we're at 56.3 at this point. So the first two rates people probably know about, the general city rate and the public safety or police and fire rate. These are what we call revenue neutral rates. And we say that because last year's rate was 19.52 for general city, and so is this year's rate. It's generating a little more income for us because of this grand list issue I talked about. This next group, this rate capped by voters, these are various taxes.
I'm concerned people might be confused at that point. I just wanted to make sure. I'm not being confused.
Don't be confused.
The revenue neutral, the big revenue neutral point is going from FY21 to FY22, where we did the reappraisal. The grand list went up dramatically, of course, because of the reappraisal, but you can see on the general city rate, the rate changed dramatically, but we basically reduced the rate dramatically so that
it's almost.
So that there was very little, other than very little change in the revenue flowing to the city. FY22 to FY23, there is some real growth in the grand list, which does generate some additional revenue. That is development related, new construction related, that does create some increased revenue, but the revenue neutral is largely the FY21 to FY22.
And the reason there's a big jump in police and fire is, you will recall, that was the tax increase specifically for police and fire for the additional ambulance.
Which was approved by the voters. Thank you.
Yes, of course, that's a very important point, thank you. This next category, rates capped by voters, are things by and large that were put into place by various city council resolutions along the way for, as you can see here, specific purposes. We have a resolution for parks, and then we have one for penny for parks. We have library money, housing trust. I won't go through them all, but those of you who were paying attention last year know that in FY22, we held those rates down because we were still in the midst of COVID, and because of the reappraisal, we knew that homeowners and property taxpayers were feeling the effects of that. And so it meant that BPRW and others had less money going to some of those dedicated funds. And so we said last year we would do everything we could to restore those monies up to their caps this year. And that is what you will see in FY23. Those monies are at the caps allowed by those various resolutions. Then the last category are rates over which it's just the budget is what the budget is. GMT in the county, we have very little control over. And then retirement and debt service kind of are what they are. And those also get added here. When those all get added up, you can see we are proposing a tax rate that would go from about 67 cents to just over 70 cents. So it is a slight tax increase, and that comes from the fact that even though no tax increase passed, again, it's these rates capped by voters floating up. We don't have exact numbers on the education tax rate yet. As you know, this is just one component of the property taxes. Those will be going down to the point of which property taxes will see their overall property tax rate go down, but I don't know exactly how much. And with that, I'm happy to take questions, and I know the mayor is as well.
Great, thank you, Catherine. The floor is open for any council questions about the current estimated tax rates. Okay. Great. No questions on my. There are no questions. We'll close this section, and final budget review for the night was also a CAO office item. Which is going to lead this, the health, retirement, workers' comp, insurance lines of the budget, which are always interesting and significant lines.
Sure. So I have 3 different funds that I'm going to cover. I think I can get through it all in about 10 minutes. Retirement, I'm going to give it 5 minutes. I'm going to give health insurance 3. I'm going to give the insurance a minute. So what I'm presenting here, or what I'm going to cover, is what you've already approved. We're going to approve the retirement and health expenditures in the individual budgets. The budgets were built that we're collecting X amount of money from our employees, and in some instances, we're getting money from our taxpayers. So I'll start out with the retirement fund. which is Fund 125, at a very, very high level. The retirement budget is $22.3 million, so it's substantial in nature. The largest expense for the retirement fund is actually coming what's called the month. I call it the monthly burn. What am I paying my retirees on an annual basis? That's approximately $20 million. In addition to that, we have return of contributions that can range from $500,000 to $750,000. The retirement department consists of a 1/2-time FTE. That's it. They report to me, and we're looking to bring on one full FTE in-house to provide the level of service that's needed. The amount of individuals that the retirement fund provides support to, it's larger than any other department in the entire city. It basically provides support to all our active employees, all our vested employees, and all the retirees. And that's 2,300 people, and that's 3 times the size of our general fund. What you've seen from CEO Shard's presentation, you would know that the dedicated tax for retirement actually dropped by 66 2/3 of a penny, so I would say 3/4 of a penny. So that is actually good news to the taxpayers. How did that happen? I'm pleased to state that the retirement fund had its highest return on investment in its history last year. It was 31%, phenomenal year. And that basically has driven a dedicated tax down. It also has resulted in our employees paying less that's coming out of their paycheck for fiscal year 23 by about 3/4 of a penny. One more thing that's worth noting, our investment portfolio, again, it's not in the presentation, but it went from $200 million to $250 million a month. So it was a banner year. So that's Fund 125. You can see that it's self-balancing. My revenue streams are coming from my employees, the departments, and our taxpayers. And again, it's self-balancing. Period. Any questions on the retirement fund?
When you,
Yes, go ahead.
when you say that our employees will pay less, does it include employees of the Burlington school district?
Yeah, so basically, that's another piece that a lot of people are unaware of, that the retirement fund basically provides support to the Burlington School District for all non-teachers, administrative staff. So again, that's just another subsection. The amount of Burlington School District individuals that we provide support to is actually the equivalent of the Burlington Electric Department. So we're talking about 100 employees are part of that plan. So the school district will benefit as well. The individuals that get paychecks, they'll notice there is a slight reduction in what's being taken from their paycheck for such service.
What is the relationship with the enterprise fund employees?
Not understanding the question.
We have employees at Burlington Airport
Yes,
and at Burlington Electric Department.
yes.
What is their relationship with this retirement? Do they contribute or taxpayers?
They're in the fund too.
They do contribute as well. However, the dedicated tax that is paid does not come from the Burlington Electric Department, Water Resources, the airport. Their revenue streams pay for the cost of such plan, and the dedicated tax that you pay for is only for the general fund, does not include the school district and all enterprise funds. Thank you. You're welcome. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I've got a slightly more basic question, which might be hard to answer, and I hope it's quick, but so when we have like a big year like this, it sounds like, you know, the things go down, how do we balance that with bad years? Is there some like carryover, or is it all?
So one thing that I didn't mention is that we're required that on our earnings, that there's actually used what's called a smoothing method. So the gains that we experienced in fiscal year 2021, which is the foundation of what we use to build our budgets in fiscal 23, basically, there is at least $10 million in gains that we got this year that is going to be spread over the next 5 years. So the beauty is, even though we're having a challenging year for returns, our returns year to date is 7.3% as a loss. You know, the good news is we're sitting on about $10 million. So that's going to result in taking a little bit of a sting off what we're going to see in the future. The other piece that I've noticed is that because of the design of the administration on the retirement plan, it's actually resulting in substantial dividends. So for example, I've seen years when we have zero gains, we're at a break even on the investment portfolio, yet there's little to no change in the amount that our taxpayers pay or our employees. So if we have a good year and we're doing double-digit returns or slightly less than 10, what I'm seeing is that the what's called ADAC, the contributions that are required based on the actual report, and basically are in, this is a word for it, you can help me with this. The mayor will get this quicker than I do, but generally it's in the 70 percentile.
Our funded liability.
Our funded liability is very attractive. It's in the 70 percentile. You know, our long-term goal is to try to get that to 80%, but that's just showing that the retirement plan is very healthy.
And one last question on that. What is our smoothing period? Is it 5 years?
It's 5 years.
5 years.
We recently reduced that smoothing cycle from 7 to 5. We have also reduced what's called actuarial assumption for investment returns from 7.5% to 10 basis points per year, and our goal is to get that to 7%, so that our unfunded liability that we're showing is very realistic. We'll do the next one. All right.
Please, as quick as you can.
Yeah, I mean, so this is 3 minutes. So self-insurance, Fund 150 is, it says self-insurance because we're self-insured, but really it's just the budget for our health and dental expenditures. That budget is $15 million a year. The claims that I'm budgeting for this year is $13.1 million, $500,000 in dental. Again, that particular department or that particular fund, there are no employees that are in that fund. It's primarily managed by Catherine, our HR director, myself on the finance side. And again, what I'm seeing is that the amount of money that our employees are paying this year is actually less than the prior year. So this is the first time in a decade that our employees are paying less for retirement and health in 1 year. It's never happened in 1 decade. That's just a positive trend that I am seeing. Any questions on this fund? Very much. Last one is our insurance fund. This particular fund has 1 employee that works in it. They have a safety manager. Her name is Nicole Blow. That individual reports to Chief Spencer.
And is recently retired and will be replaced shortly.
I didn't know that person.
Yes.
retired. So that's news to me, but I build the budget with Nicole.
Yes. That's good.
Fund 175, again, it's $4.7 million. It is really broken down into 2 components. One is basic insurance, the other is workers' comp. Workers' comp is about $2.5 million. Workers' comp has been driven or it's gone up as a direct result of our actual wages that we're budgeting for. The only other piece that's worth mentioning, it's very important that the Board of Finance and City Council are well aware of this fact. Fund 175, which is the insurance fund, and Fund 150, which is the health and dental. In the event that they go over budget, it has a direct impact on the general fund's unassigned fund balance. So it's really important that we watch this and manage it. We just break out these funds for ease of tracking, but in the consolidated audited financial report, those funds are wrapped in along with the general fund to determine overall profitability. So we have to be very aggressive in oversight and management of both of those funds. Any questions?
Great, thank you, Rich. I'm gonna close this item unless there are any questions. Great, we will now move to 5.01, which is council initiative funds bring 3 truckloads of wood from Northeast Jericho to then begin local families. Is there a counselor that wants to speak to this? Is coming from
It is coming from a counselor, Counselor Shannon is here.
I remember back.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilor Jane.
Yeah, we're going to approve the use of $1,000 from the council initiative allowed for the second please. Request is very easy.
Great, is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Great, second from President Paul. Discussion, if anyone like to say anything more about this? Okay, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously, and brings us to thank you to the PAC committee and Councilor Shannon for bringing that forward. This brings us to 5.02, authorization to execute contract for Dewey Park project with Humanity Memorial Inc. and transfer funds to the public arts capital budget for this application. Doreen, for being here. Anything else? Why don't you give a quick update on this project? It's been a while since there's been a discussion of it. Steve, what's this?
Project, Dewey Park project that BCA and RAD have been working with for almost a year. And we worked together to execute an artist call that was not nationwide, and we narrowed it down to 5. And of that 5, it got to the Humanity Memorial, who is built out a contract with us. We weren't able to execute that contract this fiscal year, and $165,000 was allocated for this one-time project, which we want to get approved a BA from the REID's general fund to the public art capital fund, so that it can be executed for next year, and also to approve the contract with Humanities Memorial and BCA execute that. So those are our 2 requests.
Sarah Katz is also here with us.
Do we have the images of the piece?
Yes. Yes, there was, should be.
Okay. Any questions for Doreen? Ready for motion? Ready, Councilor Hightower.
I'm going to take the recommended actions as listed on board docs.
Is there a second? Second by Councilor Jang. Discussion? All right, Councilor Hightower.
Just thank you to Sarah, especially for shepherding us through this process, and I appreciate your leadership on this.
I appreciate your excellent commentary as a panelist. I thought that Zariah could have had another career as an art historian.
First time I really worked with Sarah was when I was an airport commissioner, and ran
Yep.
public
we-
contest and for the skylights that are still there. A long time ago. Any further discussion?
It's a little bit about the location, what led you to choose that specific location.
Can,
Sarah could best answer this, what led to
can you repeat that? Oh, what led to the location?
base.
Yes.
We did a 3-department tour of the Old North End last summer. So it was Parks and Rec, Burlington City Arts, and REIB staff looking at a number of different potential park locations in the Old North End. And Dewey Park was ultimately selected for a number of reasons, but largely because it's in a very central location. It is right across from the Integrated Arts Academy, which was appreciated by lots of members of that group. And it seemed to be a project that, or it seemed to be a park where a public art project would really enhance the experience of the park, whereas some of the other parks we looked at already had been through other public processes or had other functions that may have not been as easy to integrate a public art piece into. So those were the main reasons that it, and the farmers market was another reason too. We really liked the idea that it was already kind of a community centered space where the piece would experience a lot of engagement through the school and the other activities that were that the space is used for.
Okay, if there are no further questions, we will go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
any opposed? Motion carries unanimously and when we look for the installations there.
Which, Sarah, when should we, like, it's starting next year with the installation, right?
Yeah, so this is about a year-long process. Actually, once we execute this contract, we are gonna want to put it into play pretty quickly, thanks to the materials issues that everybody's facing. And so it's about 1 year from the date of signing the contract with the artist that fabrication and installation will take place.
It seems also unveiling event is day next year.
So maybe before Juneteenth next year.
We'll keep our fingers
Yeah.
Days
crossed
of
that the
the-
materials
Goes
get
well,
here
yeah.
and.
Yeah, that's a lot to ask, but we're trying.
Wait, you know,
Yes, we will definitely plan an event to celebrate.
Cool.
Very good, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Pitt.
Yeah,
And,
thanks, thank you to
Keep
everyone.
us posted on
Council.
how it goes. And
Cindy.
welcome,
Thank you.
Chip, and why don't you do a quick summary, Chip, about
Great,
how it relates to the.
yes, and this is on the deliberative agenda for tonight, so we are happy to answer detailed questions. We have a very short presentation that answers some of the questions that you've heard tonight, Board of Finance. I actually have Olivia just give a quick synopsis of the action we're seeking the Board of Finance to recommend approval to the council.
I'll keep it brief since I know we're running short of time, but obviously in October 2021, we kicked off this project, bringing our consultant on board, authorizing them to start work for the public outreach phase, conceptual design phase. Since then, we've performed various outreach. You seen us come through various NPAs, host neighborhood meetings, business outreach meetings, data collection, conceptual design, as outlined in the conceptual scope of the project. As we approach a milestone tonight, as we'll be talking more about at the city council, we're seeking authorization to increase our design budget and amend our contract with our consultant to authorize additional scope items, such as holding additional project meetings needed to accommodate high level of coordination and our aggressive schedule. Additional outreach work that needs to be administered to meet the needs of our public and business community. Additional data collection required to move into some of the next preliminary phases of engineering design, as well as additional work for the parking and intersection studies, which we'll be talking about in more detail tonight, which of course is designed to address some of the concerns you've been hearing during public forum tonight. So again, we're happy to take questions now or during public city council if that works better, as this agenda item will be on the city council as well. So
Great, thank you, Olivia. How the board like to proceed? Questions, motion?
Contingencies like 15% of
Happy to. In the memo towards the end, listed 4 areas that we are working through with this project. One's the condition of the subterranean utilities. Please, Olivia.
yeah,
you
there's
know
some
better than I do.
there's some contaminated soils work associated with the project. Again, more outreach. We've just been finding that we need more and more outreach throughout this project. So there's various like components that are still kind of like remain unknown stage until we get further into the design. Right of way could be one if we kind of find something in the right of way phase that we do need to require some difficult rates for. It could potentially slow the project down. So we want to make sure we have the funding available as quickly as possible if we do still want something like that. And those things can be expensive.
Sorry, Tara, go ahead.
Move to approve and to take the recommended action.
Second by Councilor McGee, discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. We'll see you tonight.
Later on. Okay. Next up, we have Dewey.
Derek is online too.
Welcome, Derek. And whether you'd like to kick us off with a couple comments?
Hand it over to you, Derek. You want to make a few comments about it?
Sure. Thank you for having me. Good evening, everybody. What you have before you is a 5-year recommendation of award for contract for the July 3rd fireworks show, which is an annual celebration on the city's waterfront. Our recommendation is that we award the contract to a Vermont local company named North Star. There's some detail in the memo. This is a $40,000 per year contract. What we're seeking is approval for a $40,000 per year contract over the course of 5 years, which brings the grand total to $200,000. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have or any specifics around the show.
That's right, Derek, go ahead.
I assume we expect to continue getting donations around the level that we have.
Correct, and I know the Pomelos have stepped up for the second year in a row with an additional 10,000, so they contribute $25,000 towards the show. You're welcome.
When I first saw this for a second, I thought it was $200,000 per year, and I almost carried over that could not be.
Quite the show.
That's fine.
I think you'd end up, everyone would have like a neck cramp because it'd be going so long.
But if there's no other things, then I am happy to move to approve, recommend the city council authorize the contract.
Councilor Hightower, second by Councilor Jennings. Any further discussion?
I feel like 5 is only one aspect of the celebration. Low stick vendors, all the ways that details, all the details around the event itself.
When will that come out?
By, let's say, yeah. This contract is basically just for
The fireworks, correct.
but there are all the elements of the celebration. Performance.
Yeah, we have performers at Waterfront Park, there'll be vendors down on the waterfront. So is the question, when will the budget? Okay, so the performers are, I guess we don't have that in the budget, that's just part of our general fund budget. And it's also partially paid for by the vendors down at the waterfront too. But there is a, but you're correct in that there's more than a $40,000 budget for the fireworks. I don't unfortunately have that total in my head. You're welcome.
Further discussion? Certainly, I think it's exciting. Relationship with North Star has done an outstanding job for
Tom, I mean, second
artist.
yeah, second generation too, I believe it was his father originally had that. So,
Every year there's some innovations and again, it's better, so. No other comments, we're going to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
There. 5.05, contract extension for wastewater testing program. Welcome, Nancy and Megan.
So we are looking for an extension to this contract for primarily COVID testing in the wastewater. This contract has been in place since fall of 2020, and we're still to continue it. The contract will cover, like I said, COVID testing, any variant testing that might come up, along with flu and RSV. And we, at this point, we only need an extension to the contract. We are still using the ARPA money that was approved last year.
So it's not appropriating new funds, it's just this year for contract.
Yeah, that's correct. In previous council authorizations, you've dedicated the funding, and because of the city's receipt of 2 different grant funding sources, we've been able to pay for the vast majority of the program so far through those grant funds. So I think we've only paid 1 or 2 of our monthly invoices using ARPA. So we're anticipating to continue using the already allocated ARPA money.
Can you advise us on the status of testing for other viruses or?
So we have been testing for flu and RSV throughout this winter. There has not been a ton of it found, and we're going to scale back that testing over the summer and then probably resume it, doing it every other week over the winter. And then we did conduct a pilot study to test for drugs, opioids, and other substances over using historical samples, and the results were not very conclusive. Our vendor is currently attempting to develop some better methodologies, and depending on the results of that, we would test for the second half of the year. Again, under the past contract.
Great, thank you. I certainly support this extension. I think we don't know still where the future is headed with respect to COVID. Having this capacity, especially with the phase out of the state free testing sites and the just less usefulness of the testing data as we want to stay at home testing. It's an important public health capacity that we should certainly be considering. This will give us another year.
This gets us through the end of this year.
End of
2022.
the calendar year.
Yes.
And then we have another extension. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Floor is open for Councilman. So Councilman.
All right, thank you. Do we expect to be able to use grant funding to pay for this program, or are we pretty sure that it's funds?
That's a great question. The grant funding that we were using before was the local government expense reimbursement grant, which I think we've exhausted. And there was another coronavirus emergency supplemental funding program grant. I'm not sure what the status of that is. So at least through this 6-month extension, we are anticipating just using ARPA, but the team, Cara Alnaswari's team, has been really great in helping us identify other funding sources we could use first before spending ARPA money. So if anything else comes up, we will certainly take advantage of it.
That's a good question, Councilor McGinn. I think it's worth all sorts of the budget passing. There's a bunch of different. Almost every department, agency, or state has new programs, and we should see if, especially since I think the Department of Health does appreciate this data as well. Let's share it fast, please. Further discussion. As we talk about grants, you just reminded council we do have this new capacity for grant searching that it's starting to gear up and have some capacity now, so more news there. All right, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Let's do that
I
first.
would be glad to move to take the recommended action on the docs.
Discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And I'm sorry, President Paul, we gotta get your.
It's all right, I just didn't want to like totally disrupt the flow.
Why don't, Rich, why don't you move down?
Yeah, it's all right, I can do that.
Thank you.
All right. 5.06, authorization to execute contract for the supply and installation of taxiway pavement marking at Burlington International Airport with Highlight Airport Services LLC.
Great explanation.
Says us all.
It's fairly routine. We have to do this as required by FAA, and the price is right there. Just over $100,000.
Are you ready for a motion on this? Second by Councilor Jang. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Brings us to 5.07, authorization to execute a contract for the preventive maintenance and servicing of passenger boarding bridges and conveyor baggage handling systems at Burlington International Airport with Oxford Electronics.
Again, this is an extremely routine maintenance item for the airport. This is a highly recommended contractor to help us with our preventative maintenance, jet bridges, and our bag belts.
Good discussion or motion. Motion.
Thank you, to take the action as recommended.
Second by Councilor Jang. Any discussion? Vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Brings us to our final item of the meeting for Board of Finance approval only, 6.01, contract for landscape improvements. Budget neutral amendments, to the FY22 budget. Go ahead, Nick. This is. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a required item as part of our terminal integration project, the new portion of the terminal. This is the required South Burlington landscape portion that, of course, we can't fit it on the actual site of the terminal project. So this is going at the gateway of the airport, which is the intersection of Airport Drive and Williston Road. This is stonework, landscape work, and other items associated with that particular area. You're going to see this come up eventually over time.
This is the actual contract for that work? Or no? This is
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
great.
with Poland.
Great. This is gonna be cool. This will be actually a change to the airport's presence right now. Essentially just in an effort to make it say SBTV, as I understand.
Also, we had to initially take out the letters because they didn't consider it a sculpture, we had to go through a separate process for a sign. So this is just the landscaping involved. The sign, the sign needs to go back.
It'll go back before them and it might come back before you as well, depending on the
Alright,
cost.
so that's a separate contract.
That is gonna be a separate contract, but we are working on that particular sign and sculpture in front of that gateway area.
Sculpture would have counted towards landscaping, but signs don't.
Alright, we ready for a motion here? President Paul.
Thank you. I'll make that motion, take the actions recommended in board docs.
Second by Council Hightower, discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned without objection. Board of Finance at 6:03 p.m. Going upstairs, staying on the same Zoom.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so people who are on the Zoom can stay there and you will see the camera. Just stay on.
Yes, stay on. See you in a second.
There's going to be 3 on Zoom.